The most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black as they set their sights on Las Vegas for 2020. Live from the CBS Sports Radio 1140 studios, it's Silver and Black Today. Join the conversation by calling 702-889-5978. Now, here's Scott Gulbransen and Matt Gutierrez.
Sunday, football. Only 6 Sundays, ladies and gentlemen, until the NFL regular season begins. That's right. It is back in season for the Oakland Raiders, soon to be Las Vegas Raiders. Welcome back to Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 AM. I'm Scott Gulbransen, founder and publisher of silverandblacktoday.com, Las Vegas's only, that's right, only Raiders-based news website. I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Gutierrez. Matt, how you doing, man?
Good. Is Kelsey in the shot? Because Tony keeps yelling at me to move left and right. I just want to make sure that she's in the shot behind me.
Our studio, if you're, just a reminder, too, you can follow our feed here as well as on the radio. You can also do it on Facebook. So check us out on Facebook Live if you want to watch. And you can see what Matt's talking about. So tell everybody, since they're Raiders fans, they're not necessarily in Las Vegas, they're not necessarily WNBA fans. You have a picture behind us here on the wall.
Yeah, we got the Kelsey Plum fathead hanging out on the wall behind us. We call them the Plum Crazies, I guess. She's got her own cheering section at the WNBA games. So we stole one of the fatheads and brought it in studio, and she's hanging out behind us now.
That's great,
nice.
Man. Yeah, so we're decorating the studio. We continue to do that as well here. So check us out on Facebook. We are trying out different channels with our simulcast. Facebook seems to be the one that you guys prefer, so we'll be there today for sure, and then elsewhere in the future. All right, so it is
football
training
season.
Camp. It's football season, man. Yes,
football season, man.
We are excited. The high expectations. Jon Gruden has the Raiders back in camp in Napa, right? So everybody's on board and looking forward to what's going on up there. It's Jon Gruden, the sequel.
Right? Okay, we'll go with that. Chucky Part 2. What was the sequel called?
It's who knows?
Yeah, I don't know.
The Chucky
we'll go
movies,
Chucky 2, right?
We'll figure that out.
Chucky 2. I like that.
So we have that moving on. Now, Gruden and the Raiders, I got to tell you, Matt, Jon Gruden knows how to play the room, so to speak. So last weekend, as everybody knows, they were watching, if you're watching social media at all, you know that Ricky's Sports Bar in San Leonardo, right, which is Gruden's hangout. He's got a parking spot there. It's a great Raiders spot. He held a party for fans, the real alumni there. Everybody was there. And this is not fake. I mean, this is not Jon Gruden just being a good PR guy. Jon Gruden understands the fans. He, I think, feels for the fans in Oakland since the team is leaving in a couple years, and he just went out of his way to show his appreciation, which has continued into camp, which I'll talk about in a minute. But this is him, man. This is what he does.
Gruden's authentic. I mean, you watch him on the sidelines. I think that's one of the things that made me such a big Gruden fan when I was younger, was watching him on the sideline. You see guys like, I know Belichick's a robot, but guys like that, even Jack Del Rio the last few years. Big moment in the game, and it's just this very kind of subdued personality. Maybe they get a little excited, but nothing nuts. Gruden runs up and down the sideline like one of the players. That's what he does. He just exudes this energy all the time, and he's constantly into the game. He's into the players. He's just having fun out there because he's such a football guy. And like any other fan, when you see him out at the bar and things like that, he's just out there having fun like anybody else would. And it's 1,000% authentic and genuine.
And that's if you saw, too, this weekend with camp started, they had an alumni weekend this weekend. Cheryl Thornton Burnham, who was on our show last week, is up there, and she took a great picture with Phil Villapiano. I texted you guys last night. And, of course, there's pictures.
We love him.
I love, because I'm watching the media, Vic Tafer up there from The Athletic was tweeting like, Phil Villapiano showed up at the press conference with a beer. Would you expect any less? And
No.
I sent you guys a picture last night. He's on the field with a beer. His daughter Andrea's joking around, telling, hey, So, but again, fans at practice, they gave out a poster to fans. Now, you go back to the previous coaching staff, they weren't as open. Mm-hmm. Practices weren't as open. Camp was not open like it is this time. Jon Gruden's basically said, come on in.
Yeah.
And welcome them back. And to me, that makes a big difference. And it shows what Jon Gruden's about and the fact that he does appreciate the fans.
one of the games, Monday night games that Gruden was able to call, the first time he was back in the Coliseum, of course, he's down on the field and he's down in the black hole engaging with the fans. And it was like he never left. Raider fans, don't forget, Gruden was traded. He didn't leave Oakland on his own. He was traded. Al Davis traded him to Tampa Bay for a bunch of draft picks and money. Along with that, he traded away a Super Bowl, unfortunately. But Gruden didn't necessarily want to leave Oakland. The fans certainly didn't want him to leave Oakland.
No way.
He's been a Raider since he left, regardless of what team he was coaching or what booth he was sitting in. To see him down on the field, that Monday night game, interacting with the fans and, the Chucky and all of that, and everybody's getting into it, and he's taking pictures and having fun. Man, he's a Raider. He should be a Raider, always be a Raider. He, without question, belongs on that sideline.
Well, there's nobody better to be the ambassador for Raider Nation. Need I say I don't know if you call him the president, the premier.
Well, the president is Cube.
The king.
Ice Cube is the president of the Raider Nation. We have to give him his just due. He's got a song about it. So
he does. You're right.
Cube is the president, but what do you?
Supreme leader, king. I don't
governor,
know.
Governor. I don't know. Whatever you want to call him. He's
the guy.
He's up top somewhere.
Okay. Well, with camp underway, we're going to get into a couple storylines. But first, our correspondent David Stepanian has a piece to kind of wrap up for you guys, and with some audio, what happened early on in camp. And we're going to go to that right now. Here's David Stepanian with a report on.
CBS Sports Radio. Help us talk the silver and black. Call us at 702-889-5978. Here's Matt Gutierrez and your host, Scott Gulbranson, on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 AM.
All right, we're back. Ladies and gentlemen, it is football season. We are going to talk a couple things real quick here. Not real quick, but we're going to take this segment. We're going to talk about Khalil Mack. Now, a couple things that I want to touch on. A great piece I'm going to hold up for our Facebook audience here, which was by Marcus Thompson II from The Athletic. If you don't subscribe to The Athletic, I don't pay for a lot of sites anymore, but I actually like The Athletic. Anyway, Thompson wrote a piece on why it's time for the Raiders to pay Khalil Mack what he's earned. Couple things that I liked in his story, Matt, I want to mention. I'm going to read these verbatim because I think he captured it right now. And he says here, what the Raiders don't need right now is normal. They need bold. They need stability. They need exactly what they used to go and get Jon Gruden. Yes, Mack is worth it. The Raiders have somehow managed to swallow and do what it takes to get a new stadium, to sign Derek Carr, to get Gruden. Is that few million they're trying to save worth killing that momentum? Then he goes on to say, here's another thing that I love too, which is the Raiders are 2 seasons from moving into the new digs in Las Vegas. That means they should be 2 years from a windfall of cash. If the new stadium, the reason they've left the Bay Area, is to reap the financial boon of the franchise needs, they will have to head into the desert as winners. They need to be legit contenders to really maximize that opportunity. Now is not a good time to penny pinch, okay? And he also credits Matt, and I agree with this, around being quiet about what his issues are, right? He's not come out and popped off. He says didn't throw a tantrum, but last year definitely did hold on him. And I like this. Now, if we look at the money, Mack's already on the books for almost $14 million guaranteed this year. So if $80 million is not enough, let's say, to make his to get him there, to make his extension 4 years, $86 million. If you did that 4-year extension, it gets up to about $100 million, right? But you're already on the hook for that money. So if we look at the Khalil Mack situation, Matt, I just believe I don't know what's going on. I think we all were in agreement that we thought it would get done before camp. It did not. Now we're into camp, and now I think most of us are saying it'll get done by the first week of the season. Missing camp, But at what point, and are you concerned at this point?
No, I'm not. I think that, and people have talked about this. Okay, people have touched on it a little bit, but I don't think it's been made a big enough issue, and that is the Aaron Donald situation in L.A. with the Rams. I think a lot of this hinges on when his deal gets done. If Donald was already in camp and his deal is done,
why wait?
Why wait for him?
My point is
that's where we're at.
That's the market.
Exactly.
But why not set the market?
Because he doesn't want to be the guy below Donald. These two
So you
guys
think it's
are
on
waiting
Mack's
on
side?
each other. I think
You
they're
don't think
both
it's the
waiting on
Raiders?
each other. I think they're both trying to figure out who's going to walk away from these negotiations as the top paid defensive player, especially between the two of them because they play similar positions. These two guys are going to set the bar, right? They're both going to have higher contracts than what Von Miller has.
Yeah.
And I think they're kind of playing this waiting game for each other. Now, Donald, who held out last year, has to be in camp a month prior to the first preseason game. So he has way less time to play with than what Mack does. If he gets into camp within, what would that be, the next 10 days or
10
so,
days,
roughly?
Yeah.
I think that's when you see the Mack deal get done. Whether it's the franchise deal that he signs off on or they get the long-term deal done, I think that's the other shoe that has to drop before he gets in there.
Well, I agree. I technically agree with Thompson here in his piece, which is the Raiders. Now, if it's on Mack's side, that's a different story. If Mack is waiting and saying, look, I don't want to talk yet, or I don't want to talk numbers yet, two things. One is I think that's short-sighted because, or why aren't you in camp then? Okay, you have a deal already. You're getting $14 million this year. Mm-hmm. So if that's indeed what's happening. Now, if it's on the Raiders side, that's where I have my issue, where I agree with Marcus Thompson at The Athletic, which is, what are you waiting for? You didn't wait for someone to sign and then sign Derek Carr. You went out at the time, of course, now that's all been surpassed, but you went out and you made him the highest priced or highest paid quarterback. Why not take care of Mack now? And I think his argument is compelling. When you look at the dollars, too, even if you gave him an $86 million extension, which would make him the highest priced defensive player at $100 million over the course of his contract, then you've set the bar, you've made him your guy, and it's over, and you're focused on the season.
Who says that it's on the Raiders or it's on Mack?
We don't know.
That's the thing. It's all speculation. Everybody
is.
coming out and saying this stuff doesn't have any tangible evidence. It's just, well, could be this, could be that. That's why I feel that the Donald situation is so much bigger than what people are making it. Again, it has been talked about, and they throw it out there. Yeah, these two guys are competing for top dollar. But I think it's a bigger deal than what people are making it, because I don't know that it is anybody's fault necessarily between the Mack and the Raiders camp. The Raiders could be sitting there going, yeah, we understand. We'll wait and see what they set it at, and we'll beat that. Mack could be saying, I'm waiting for this to happen. I just want to be ahead of that. It could just be a stalemate with him and Donald waiting to see where that goes. Doesn't mean that there's animosity between the two. I don't think the Raiders are necessarily concerned with Mack missing camp because you know what kind of shape this guy's in. You know what kind of work ethic he has. He's going to pick up this system. I don't think he's going to struggle there. And we know what kind of player he is. So I don't think anybody's panicking, because generally with these kinds of things, if there is bad blood, you hear about that. You hear about the animosity. You hear about the infighting between the two, and this is a legit holdout because of X, Y, and Z.
Matt,
you're not getting that.
No, and that's why I don't necessarily put a lot of credence into reports that someone hasn't talked to somebody and Mack hasn't talked to Gruden, which Gruden basically in the press conference said that's not true. He came over to my house and played basketball.
And that's the thing. You hear all these reports, and then you hear from the source that, no, we've talked, but what's Gruden going to do? Negotiate the contract? A, he's not the defensive coach. B, he's not the agent. That's not what he does. He's not in there negotiating numbers with Khalil Mack's agent. That's not how it works. Or Khalil Mack, for that matter.
Although, if you read some things, he's running the franchise. But anyway, but to me, though, and our listener, Corey Sanford, who's watching us on Facebook, said if he's not signed by the third preseason game, I would hit the panic button. I think that's a legitimate opinion. Now, I think with Mack, again, though, you have the ability to make him the poster child for the top defensive player in the NFL. And I think you bring up a great point here, Matt, too, and I know we're talking back and forth about it. Where the issue is, we don't know, so all we can do is speculate. Everybody has to speculate. Fans want him in. Fans want him ready to go for the season because they know how important he is to the plans and the future of this team. Now, at the same time, he's got to protect himself. I've never been critical of Mack for holding out. Now, again, as Corey said, if it gets to the third preseason game and there's no progress, that's a different story. Now, I say progress meaning that are we going to know? Now, the Raiders are a very tight-lipped organization. They always have been, and you got to give them credit for that. They keep things under wrap more than most. But to me, I just think you got to get it done, and the earlier you do it, after all of the dysfunction last season, all of it, which was not good for Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack is a congenial guy.
Yeah.
He is really good. He might not be the upfront spokesperson all the time, but I'll tell you what, he's a great, fun, nice guy, and last year he clammed up. He clammed up because of all the crap that was going on in that locker room.
I think there are different types of holdouts, and we've talked about this a couple of times over the last couple of weeks. There's the Julio Jones style holdout where, and good for him, he's back in camp now and he's ready to go. But there's a type of holdout where you sign a 6-year deal, and 2 or 3 years into that deal, you're already holding out to get more money. You just signed a deal.
Nice,
now, I get that there's this hypocrisy because owners are so willing to just dump contracts right away, and that's unfortunately on the players' union for not putting that guarantee in those contracts. But that kind of holdout, I think, is a negative because you just signed the deal. Play out your deal. A Mack holdout is different. He's now at a point where he can negotiate for a long-term deal. He's never signed that long-term deal. Time for him to get that deal. Why not hold out for that money? That's a good thing.
I agree. And I think that one thing that people forget about, right? I know Reggie's been there, okay? But you had a complete turnover in the organization, okay, at the end of last season. Mm-hmm. So really picking up the ball and negotiate, people could say, well, you've had all this time. And in fact, in my head last night as I was thinking through the issue, I'm like, wait a minute, you've had all this time. You could have had these conversations over the course of the offseason and got this thing done. The only problem with that is you had to go out, you had to recreate your defense. Mm-hmm. You had to sign people all over the place. You were signing free agents. You were getting prepared for the draft. So the time that you think was there and that they had plenty of time to do it actually isn't that much time.
Right.
You're trying to turn around a ship that kind of buoyed a little bit and then started sinking again.
Yeah, they're up against it. They just the offseason, as long as it seems, there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, you're talking about filling out a 90-man roster to cut down to the best 53 on that roster, and then you've got this other stuff on the side with negotiating and contracts and all of that stuff. Not to mention, they're still trying to walk that fine line between keeping the Oakland fans engaged and bringing in the new Vegas fans, and they're bouncing back and forth from city to city. There is a lot going on within this organization every single day.
Yes, and although again, you can't let that get in the way of tying up your best player and the best defensive player in the NFL, in my view, as far as his position goes. And so they got to figure it out. I'm not concerned that you're not hearing anything. So we'll get past that and we'll figure it out a little bit as we go. The other thing, again, Doug Martin. So our buddy Vic at The Athletic, he said, and I'm paraphrasing, don't be surprised if there's a competition at running back. That's for the first slot. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I'm just saying, though, the way it's being written by multiple folks up there in camp is Martin's already got a spot.
Good.
And that the third spot's between Richard and Washington, which is fine, and we've talked about that. But I'm telling you, he's going to be big in this team. I hope he does have
a spot, but a guy with a 2.4 yards per carry average over the last couple of seasons needs to show you something on the field. You can't just go, he had 1 or 2 good seasons here and there. He's got to show something out there because he hasn't done anything with the ball lately. And he can't stay on the field on top of it.
That's true. He's the bionic hamster. But we'll talk about him. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk offensive battles. Oh, take me out, Angus. Take me out. AC/DC, baby. You're listening to Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 AM.
.com app. Download it today and search CBS Sports Radio 1140 in Las Vegas and listen to us anytime, anywhere.
Yes, welcome back, Silver and Black today. By the way, Matt, that radio.com app, holy moly.
Some good stations on there, man.
And I feel honored. I mean, you go on there, you search sports, and you got WFAN, you got WIP in Philadelphia, all these big sports stations, and then there's us.
Yeah.
The resurgent and ready to explode CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Back.
Yes.
Here we come.
Yes, and we're having fun here talking Raiders training camp. We're going to transition now to talk a little bit about the offense and some of the battles happening there as well. So let's start, and we're going to talk to Chris Reed, our senior NFL analyst, who wrote a story on Kolton Miller last night, later in the show. But if we look at that spot, we talked about Donald Penn and what he's doing while still recovering from his foot injury and how he's really being a coach and doing a great job of helping the young Miller get up there. I just like what's happening there. Now, it's early. Again, they put on the pads for the first time today. Remember, we talked about until they put the pads on. They're going to put the pads on today and start getting some contact. So we'll see how things go. But I really like, and I think that you're going to see, barring injury or some massive setback, you're going to see Raider Nation come around including you, Matt, to the Kolton Miller pick and the Brandon Parker pick. I think the depth on this line going into the season, if Penn gets healthy, is going to be one of the strengths.
I think they had a pretty good idea of where Donald Penn was going to be come training camp, more so than anybody could have ever imagined, because you look at it now and Penn's still sitting there dealing with that Liz Frank injury. Like you said, on the sideline coaching people up as opposed to on the field smashing heads, which is where you want him to be, right? You need him on the field. I think that, unfortunately, that could be a bigger issue than what it's being made out to be, because there is some serious talent on the defensive side of the ball throughout the division when it comes to pass rushers. You got Chubb in the division now along with Von Miller, San Diego with Joey Bosa. I mean, there's guys that can get after you in this division, and you need a strong offensive line, especially on that left tackle spot, Carr's blind spot. And if you're throwing a rookie out there, albeit a first-round pick, a very talented rookie, a guy that the coaching staff feels can be an all-pro going forward, he's still a rookie, and he's got to get used to this game and that type of speed. And these guys are these are the best of the best that are going to be coming off the edge against him. It's going to be tough sledding for him if he's not ready.
Okay, so let's move to running back, and all joking aside, a resurgent Doug Martin.
I didn't agree to that.
A resurgent Doug Martin, I think, helps because, again, the guy can get 500 yards. It would be huge for this team to spell Marshawn Lynch. And if we look at the running back number 3, which is, I think, what we're hearing is going to be the biggest competition, one of those guys, DeAndre Washington, Jalon Richard, one of those is not going to make the team. Who do you like? I like Richard because he's more multifaceted. He can also return kicks, even though the Raiders went out and got kick returners, punt returners.
I don't like Richard in the kick return game, to be honest with you, because he has a hard time hanging onto the ball in the return game. Not so much out of the running back spot, but in the return game, I don't know what it is, whether it's mental or just the type of hits that you take in a return game.
Right.
But he just seems to struggle to hang on to the ball. I like both guys a lot. I think they bring a similar skill set. They're built the same. Washington's a little stockier. Richard has a little more explosion. You remember his first carry in New Orleans that broke for, what was that, 70 yards up the middle. I mean, in third step, he's gone. But I don't know. I think whichever guy fits Gruden's system a little better is the one that's going to stick around, because I think you get kind of the same thing out of those two guys. I have a feeling Washington may be the guy that can handle the load a little more because he is a little thicker. He's a little stockier build, maybe a stronger guy. But Richard puts in crazy work in the offseason, so we'll see how he comes into camp.
But again, we've talked about it numerous times. You guys talked about it yesterday on Sports Adrenaline Las Vegas. Gruden has built an environment of competition.
Right.
And so this is what you want. How do you become the best team in the NFL? You become the best team in the NFL, if you look at what the Patriots do even, dare I, is they create competition. Nobody's ever safe. You bring a guy in, you have him push the guy in front of him, and at the very least, even if you're not making the team, you push that guy to make him better. And we're starting to see that too. Now we're seeing it at wide receiver as you look at Jordy Nelson. The reports coming out of camp, and I talked to somebody up there yesterday, was everyone's surprised at his speed.
Yeah. When you see guys like that, the first time I stood on an NFL sideline for a game, because you can watch it from the stands, you can even watch it from the front row on the 50-yard line, it's different when you're down there. When you're standing on the sideline and you see not just how big these guys are in person, but how fast they move. I was always one of those guys that said, if I'm ever on the sideline of a game and the play's coming at me, I'm not going to move. I want to take the hit. I want to be the guy that gets rolled up on the sideline. And here comes a play. Running back swings out wide. Linebackers coming over to get him, and they're going to meet at me. And here's my chance, right? I'm going to stand there and take it. The hell I did. As soon as they got close, I realized I wasn't wearing a helmet and pads, and I got the heck out of the way. These guys are huge, and the speed is insane. It is insane out there. It is a completely different game when you're standing there.
Well, it is. And Jordy Nelson's speed, everyone knows how sure-handed he is. Also, we've done several stories on the website on silverandblacktoday.com about how Jordy Nelson creates space. So any speed that he does lack, he makes up for it by doing that, by being a good route runner, by creating space between him and the defender so that the quarterback can drop the ball. And now, yesterday as well, we saw Martavis Bryant have a nice touchdown down the sideline and show off his speed and ability to catch the ball. So you bring in Bryant, and what happened with Bryant? We've not seen any issues with the NFL. That's a big story because going in, it was some uncertainty after the report came out at the end of minicamp, and nothing's happened since.
Well, it's funny because when that report came out, everybody in the know said, he passed everything he had to pass. He went through the meetings and came out of those okay with NFL personnel. So probably there's not much there, but maybe they know something we don't know. Well, apparently they didn't know anything that we didn't know. It was just a report about past news. It seems like it was okay. He had these issues in the past. This could possibly jump up again and bite him, but there was no new information, so nothing came of it. And there he is on the field, and they fully expect him to be there September 10th for opening night.
Yeah, and to me, not only that, and we haven't heard much yet out of camp around Amari Cooper because you've heard a lot about Nelson, and it's only been a few days, folks, right? Okay, so I'm stretching a little bit, but you haven't heard anything about Amari Cooper, but you have heard about Nelson, you have heard about Bryant.
Well, they're the new guys.
They're the new guys. But not only that, having them there, now Bryant's had his issues, but having the force that is Jordy Nelson and having him there with his leadership, I think soon you're going to hear Amari Cooper's name. You're going to see him really elevate his game, and we'll start to see that soon here as they start contact. Yeah,
a lot of people were mad when the Raiders let Crabtree go because how do you bring in Nelson and let go of Crabtree? Crabtree's a little younger. They kind of fit the same mold, so to speak.
Yeah.
Nelson's a different kind of leader than what you get out of Crabtree. I think he's going to be a better locker room guy. I think he's a little more willing to take guys under his wing, show them how to run those routes, how to play the game. And he still, in my opinion, can get deeper than Michael Crabtree can. And Crabtree's a great red zone guy. I really loved watching Crabtree play as a Raider. He's a great possession guy. I'll move the chains for you. But I think Nelson gives you a little more diversity there. So I don't think it was a lateral move. I think you upgraded there a little bit. Bryant, obviously, just crazy speed guy. The speed is insane with this kid. And then I keep going back to it. Cooper moving to the slot. And we talked about this all the way back in probably February on one of our first podcasts. And I said, I think Cooper moving to the slot would be the best bet. And we were shot down by a couple people on that. But here he is going to the slot because he's just so dynamic. The footwork is insane. His ability to leave people behind on one step, he's in and out of his breaks. I think that's going to be huge for the Raiders.
Yeah, and we want to hear what you guys have to say. 702-889-5978. Call in. Don't just sit there. Come on, work with us here. Call in. Tell us what you think. And we're also going to talk Corey, our listener, Corey, again, Ryan Switzer. I like Ryan Switzer. I think Ryan Switzer is the guy. And Chris Reed, our senior NFL analyst, who's going to come on and join us here after the break, coming up in a couple minutes, he wrote a story back about Gruden taking on some of the same vision and same process that Bill Belichick does in New England. To me, Ryan Switzer is that guy. He's like an Amendola. He's like one of those guys who you don't expect to be a big role player, but they come in when they're needed, sure-handed, and they get the job done. So I like Ryan Switzer to make the roster.
Yeah, you come in and you go four wide, and you've got Coop, Nelson, and Brian out there, and then you bring in a guy like Switzer. I think it's huge. Yeah. I think, again, you're dealing with mismatches because you have to slide a safety down on a guy who's just got insane quickness, is going to get in and out of his breaks like that, or you have to move a linebacker out there. If you can catch guys in the wrong personnel on defense, you're going to run all over the field on these guys.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. So I think that wide receiver core, where we had so much concern about it last year with not only inconsistency, but players playing out of place, and then you add in Jon Gruden allowing Derek Carr, hey, he's saying, look, Derek, you're on the field. You take control. You got to do the Rich Gannon, which is, hey, if you think there's a play that's better, you tell me to stop, and you're going to make the call at the line, which is a big change for Derek Carr.
Yeah, I think the coaching staff has kind of kept him under wraps a little too much over the course of his career so far. Gruden is a quarterback guy. He knows how to get the most out of quarterbacks. Look at the guys he's won with in the past. Carr has always reminded me of Rich Gannon, not just physically, but his style of play, the way he attacks the game, his athleticism, his ability to get out and go, which they've talked about wanting to allow him to get out and run a lot more. I think Carr is the perfect fit for a Gruden offense.
Well said. We're going to step aside. When we come back, Chris Reed, our senior NFL analyst at silverandblacktoday.com, will join us. You're listening to the Silver and Black Today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m. All right, we are back. This is Silver and Black Today. We talk Raiders football every Sunday from 8 to 10 a.m., and that includes during the season. We also have some special broadcasts coming up, which we will talk about in future weeks. So don't miss any shows because you'll get that information from us here. All right, we're going to go out on the Newsmaker line now, and we're going to bring in Chris Reed, who is our senior NFL analyst at Silver and Black Today. If you don't know Chris, if you haven't read his stuff, boy, are you missing out. He is amazing. He's been doing a lot of work now as camp has rolled around, and we're glad to have him on. Chris, how you doing this morning?
Pretty good, man. I wish I was at camp. I can almost hear the pads cracking from here.
Yeah, man.
And you could have a beer with Phil Villapiano. So that would definitely cap off the day. Now, we wanted to bring you on, Chris, because you've written a couple stories I think that are very important to what's happening in Napa around the Raiders and what they're doing this year different under Jon Gruden. And just a couple days ago, you wrote a story about Gruden and the fact that the veterans in camp and what he's doing there and what he had to say. What is it with Gruden and veterans, and why do you think it's central to what he's trying to build there and how he's trying to turn this thing around?
Well, the first thing he wants somebody to help bring the young guys along, and he wants that veteran that he can count on if the young guys aren't ready, when week one comes rolling around.
Yeah, and that to me, we had somebody comment here on Facebook that they didn't necessarily agree with the Doug Martin signing. And, yeah, I'm going back to Doug Martin because, remember, I told you on the podcast this week, my man. Right? Now we're hearing it out of there. I know. I look brilliant for a week, and then he'll get cut next week.
I'm coming around on him.
But, those signings, too, Matt, those signings are huge because you're right, Chris. You need depth, and you just don't know what's going to happen with some of these young guys. They may come along and be a starter right away, but they might need some time to develop as well.
Yeah, you have to have competition, otherwise guys get complacent. If you know your job is secure, what incentive is there for you to give that little bit extra? Not that guys aren't going to work hard. We know they're going to work hard. This is the NFL. This is what they're paid to do. But there's always that little bit extra, that tiny bit of reserve you have there that's going to get you over that hump. If you don't have somebody behind you pushing you to give that little extra more, you may not put it out there.
That's right. Now, Chris, you also wrote a piece last night on Kolton Miller. Now, Kolton Miller, of course, he's your top draft pick in 2017, so people are going to talk about him. We're hearing really positive stuff out of Napa. He came back into camp. He gained weight, and that was not just sitting around eating cheeseburgers. He spent time in the weight room. He bulked up. Tell us what you've heard and what you've seen from what the coaches have talked about with Kolton Miller and his development early on.
Well, Gruden really loves his mental development more than anything. Carr was kind of in the same category, where he gets what's going on. He had that extra time when the rookies came in on Monday to kind of learn the protection calls and everything. So just in case, worst case scenario, Donald Pinn's not ready to go, they could play Kolton Miller.
Now, with that rest of that line, too, we were talking earlier in the show about it here, Chris, Matt and I were. If you look at what's happening there and what you're seeing, I still like Brandon Parker to win out on the right side. You don't see Miller making that switch to right side if Penn wins the job out, do you?
Probably not. I think when you got somebody like Kolton Miller that his main thing he needs to work on is technique, you don't want to go switching him side to side and completely reversing that technique. You end up just kind of confusing a young player that way. Now,
you also wrote earlier in the week about Gruden's dislike for RPOs, run-pass options. Okay, so the Raiders' offense, everyone's going to be watching over the next several weeks, and especially as we get to August 10th with that first preseason game against the Lions, about this offense, Jon Gruden's offense. Of course, we know from past stops and what he did in Oakland before and what he did in Tampa Bay, what his philosophy is, but what will change? Is he going to use run-pass options more than he has? What is the data and what do people tell us that makes us think he will or he won't?
Personally, I don't think he will as much, mostly because I think of what he's going to do with the run game. He's not really going to need to. But everybody in the league used it last year, and it did pick up about 4.5 yards per attempt. But it's not like the teams that are running it are the really smart teams, and the ones that don't, are the ones that are falling behind, because you had Kansas City and Philly who each ran over 100, and then you had Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay combined, they only ran 12 last year, and both of those guys were Gruden assistants before. So I don't think with the running game and the play action that's going to come off of it that they're really going to need to focus on it too much.
Matt, you see Gruden doing anything different than he's done in the past with this offense, with the personnel he has?
Not necessarily different. I think Gruden has a lot of weapons to be able to do what he does best within that system. We talked about Carr looking a lot like Gannon in the way that he plays. Gannon was a guy that, he wasn't a guy that got out. He wasn't Michael Vick. All right, you didn't see him take off for 110 yards a game and just kill you with that kind of dual threat. But Gannon was a guy that ran when he had to run. In his 4 years with Jon Gruden, his 4 years where he played 16 full games with the Raiders, he ran over 60 times per season for an average of about 4.8 yards per carry.
Yeah.
That's just moving the chains when you need to move the chains, understanding the situation. If you have a running back that's getting almost 5 yards a pop, that's huge.
Yes.
But he wasn't getting crazy yards per game. He'd get 200 yards for the season, but they were meaningful yards. They were yards that you had to have at specific times in the game.
Now, Chris, we did see this week too. Just want to get your thought on this real quick. Colin Cowherd, who now has become, I think, maybe the most wanted man in Raider Nation, asked the question. He does kind of his preseason poll around teams that could become dumpster fires. Do you see the Raiders here? We did a Twitter poll, which we're going to show you real quick here on Facebook. You'll see a graphic. But if you look at the Twitter poll we did, where we asked folks, do the Raiders have a possibility of becoming a dumpster fire? 56% said, who cares what Colin Cowherd thinks? 26% said he just hates the Raiders. 18% said it could happen. Do you see any issues here? I mean, it's a switchover year. It's a year of transition, Chris. Is there the possibility that things could maybe go south for a little while here?
I mean, there'll certainly be growing pains anytime you're bringing in this many new players into new systems, but you're talking about upgrading a roster and a coaching staff and thinking the team will go backwards. It doesn't really make sense. I think Colin just knows if he talks about the Raiders, his ratings go up.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think he's doing it just because Jon Gruden and the Raiders are going to be one of the stories in the NFL this year. Chris, man, thank you for coming on. Make sure you follow Chris Reed _NFL on Twitter, and then also, of course, read his stories on silverandblacktoday.com. We want to hear what you guys have to say about this Raiders team so far in camp. Make sure you call in 702-889-5978. Now, when we come back after the next break, Matt, we're going to talk a little bit about relocation, because we had some feedback over the week that I'll get to, but also kind of the perils of relocation. Will the Raiders lose their identity? We'll talk about that. We did a poll on that as well, which was answered quite a bit, and we'll talk with you about the Raiders and their identity, right? Because it's huge. It's a big deal for Raider Nation and for any brand, really. And when you're talking about a sports team, making sure you keep it, and when you move, you're concerned with it. So when we get back, Matt's going to lead us in that discussion. Oh, yeah, bring in the bass. Slap the bass. Right?
Metalhead over here, man.
All right, baby. We are Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m. We'll be back right after this. Don't go anywhere.
The most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black as they set their sights on Las Vegas for 2020. Live from the CBS Sports Radio 1140 studios, it's Silver and Black today. Join the conversation by calling 702-889-5978. Now, here's Scott Gulbransen and Matt Gutierrez.
Welcome back, everybody. Happy Sunday in a hot Las Vegas. Now,
Scott's standing up here. I don't know what happened, but
I'm standing
he's a little amped up.
I got to get rolling, man. I'm telling you what, Colin is playing music today. It's getting me geared up. He's got us dialed in. Colin Pulicello, our engineer extraordinaire. He's the man. So we're going to come back in. Not only, by the way, I just had to add this. Silver. It's not only silver and black today. It's silver and black every day, right?
Yeah.
Every day. It's football season, folks.
Dang,
we're ready to roll. We are ready to roll now. Before we get into Matt's segment, I want to announce one thing. We've been talking about it in our social media channels, on our podcast. August 10th.
Oh, I can't wait, man.
This is going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
We are going to be doing a game watch party with our brothers and sister, if we get Haley to show up.
Oh, she'll be there.
She'll be there.
I heard she's hosting.
Yeah, they like her over there. We are going to be hosting with Sports Adrenaline Las Vegas and Silver and Black today at Legacy Stadium at the Palazzo. We're going to be hosting a watch party. Free parking. Heck.
Palazzo and Venetian, I think the only two left on the Strip.
Is there?
You don't have to pay.
And people, Raider Nation concerned with tailgating. This is free parking, so you can tailgate in the parking garage and then come up to the game.
Well, I don't know if they'll let that happen. But
Be a little hot in there.
Yeah.
But come out. It's 7 p.m. We're going to be not only hosting there, we'll watch the game together. Halftime, we're going to do actually pregame. We're going to talk about the season. We'll talk about the game. Halftime, we're going to be doing some cool giveaways. So make sure you come out to the Palazzo Legacy Stadium. If you haven't been there, it is freaking amazing.
Good spot to watch a game. Any game. Any sport.
Any
Good
game.
spot.
Now, this week we asked folks another poll on Twitter, and we had a couple hundred of you answer this. Do you fear the Raiders will lose some of their identity with the move to Las Vegas? 65% of you who answered said, no, it's Raider Nation. It doesn't matter if we're in Tijuana, if we're in Mexico City. It doesn't matter. We're not going to lose our identity. 23% said, a little, I'm concerned. I get that. I think that's fine. And 12% of you said yes, and it sucks. So, Matt Gutierrez, I know you had a strong take on this, which is why we asked the poll. Talk about people's concerns with this and where you're going with it.
Well, I don't know that I necessarily understand the level of concern. I think a lot of it stemmed from not the move necessarily, but the latest news, which was the Greg Papa thing, where Papa's out, Flores is out, and you bring in Brent Musburger and Lincoln Kennedy. By the way, Lincoln Kennedy is a Raider, so you're not losing anything there. You've got a Raider coming in, and until Papa was a Raider, he wasn't a Raider. I get it as far as being upset about Papa because I was a big Greg Papa fan.
Yeah.
His call for the New Orleans game 2016, that highlight came through my Twitter feed the other day. And it was the Crabtree catch on the 2-point conversion. He caught it. It was a great call. It was fun. It was energetic.
Pretty good, man. That was a pretty good.
Yeah, well, I'm applying for the job in a few years when Musburger's done. But I mean, you looked for those calls. You get used to hearing your guys, right? I'm a Dodgers fan. Dodgers with Vince Scully, and now it's not the same, but you still get good calls from Joe Davis, right? You still have fun with it. It'll be that way, but it's not an identity thing. It's the Raiders are not Greg Papa. Greg Papa is not the Raiders. The Raiders are so much more than that. Let's start with Al Davis. Al Davis is the Raiders, right? I mean, no matter what,
no doubt.
You go back to why they are what they are, the silver and black, that's Al Davis. Just win, baby. That's Al Davis. Commitment to excellence, that's Al Davis. That more than anything, I think, signifies what the Raiders are. And in the Coliseum, they've put up that torch, and they have somebody come out and they light that torch between every game. And it's kind of up in the corner. It's out of the way. You can see it, but you know how the Coliseum is configured with the new side, the Mount Davis side that they call it, that they built when they came back to Oakland in '95. And it's kind of tucked away. The new stadium here in Vegas, that entire north end zone opens up to overlook the Strip.
Yes.
And what's sitting in the middle of it? A huge Al Davis torch. That right
like
away.
Olympic size.
Yeah. I mean, that signifies an identity right off the bat. The Al Davis identity. That right off the bat is the Raiders.
Well,
let's start there.
Let me say this too. And I agree with everything you said. Let me say this too, because we did have I got some comments back from people, both privately and publicly, about some of the conversations we've had on this show and the podcast around some of the fans in Oakland who have been protesting and spreading, I think, some mistruths. And I just want to say this, too, because we had some people say, hey, listen, I don't want to listen to you guys if you're going to just bag on these folks. And it's not bagging on Oakland folks. Again, we have said from the very beginning, we love Oakland fans. They're the original Raider fans. They will always have a place. They're welcome in our town anytime, and we can't wait to have them here. This was focused on some of the folks who are just kind of trying to create discord. Now, probably giving them too much time, so we'll stop that. We appreciate the feedback. We listen to the feedback. At the same time,
it's mostly
our town has been attacked, too.
Attacking Vegas.
Right.
That's where our
the only
contention
people
comes
we have
in
issues
because
with.
we're Vegas guys.
Right.
You know, I'm a born and raised Vegas native. Of course I'm going to be defensive if you're attacking Vegas, because what did Vegas do to anybody? They didn't do anything, right? So that's where our defense comes in. But back to the identity thing, you know, let's go to L.A. The Raiders moved to L.A. back in 82. Did they lose their identity in moving to L.A.? L.A. and Oakland are very different cities. Let's be honest. L.A. is
absolutely.
Hollywood. It's the glitz. It's the glamour. It's the celebrities, you know, the nightlife. Oakland is blue-collar, industrial town, hardworking. It has a very different look to it. They didn't lose identity going to L.A. They built more identity. They brought in a completely different and brand-new fan base that has now been ingrained into what Raider culture is, right?
Well, and I would argue, Matt, too, and again, with all respect to people in Oakland, much of, I think, Raider Nation outside of Oakland right now, who are fans of the Raiders, because of age, actually, that's where it came from. It came from the L.A. years.
Yeah, a lot of it
If
did.
you look at you talk about Ice Cube earlier as being the president of Raider Nation, right? That was all born out of the L.A. stay, okay?
Right.
So the way I look at it is, what other franchise, and maybe I'm just spinning this positive because that's how I want to be about it, but what other franchise is going to have been in 3 cities and going to develop tradition and identity unlike any other team ever? Now, I get it. You know, for the folks in Oakland, I get it. You don't want to lose that. And you know what?
Well,
broadcasters, Greg Papa, you identify. They become like your friend, even if you haven't met them. Because you grew up, you have emotions attached, like you said about the New Orleans game. You have emotions attached to those people, and when they leave, it's jarring.
Right.
And I get that. So you get over that, and it'll happen.
And that's the point I was going to make about the L.A. thing. Excuse me. Is name. So before the Raiders got there, that was a Rams town, correct? Not that there weren't Raider fans in Southern California, because they're everywhere.
Right.
But that's the L.A. Rams. That's what they were. And then obviously they cut out in 95 with the Raiders, and they went to St. Louis, and now they're back. But the Rams were their team. You know, if you asked L.A. fans, probably you were going to get more Rams than you were anything else. Then the Raiders get there. They were only there for a handful of years, a little over a decade, and then they went back. Go to L.A. now, and who's their team? That's how strong this Raider brand is. They've been gone for over 20 years now. They've been gone from L.A., and L.A. is still a Raiders town. That is how strong their identity is. They don't lose their identity. They create an even larger one. Now they're coming to Vegas.
Great point. That's a great
Very
way to
different town than what you get in Oakland. Just like L.A. was different, Vegas is different. It has a different feel. It is a live all the time. It is 24/7. It has that kind of glitz glamour thing, not in the same style as L.A., but it has its own identity. It's going to add to it.
I'll tell you this, and unlike you, who's been involved in watching the Raiders your whole life, that's not my background, right? So now working in Raider Nation, so to speak, I've never seen a fan base, honestly, that is more welcoming and more inclusive of fans of their own team from other areas, meaning that when you
Raider Nation.
Exactly. When you run into somebody along the line and you're wearing a Raider hat or whatever you may, they always go out of their way to come up and say hello and say, hey, cool, give me the thumbs up.
Well,
now,
a lot of teams like to use the nation thing. The Raiders started it, and they, without question, the most inclusive of any team that wants to use that. They're truly everywhere.
Well, and that's what I want to say, too, to the folks in Oakland. If you haven't been to Vegas since all this happened, and as you come to Vegas, as the transition continues to gain steam and the stadium construction and the team moving here happens, you're always welcome here. And I can't wait for those fans, because you know what? Las Vegas fans, especially those new to Raider Nation, you're going to teach everybody. You're going to teach us, and I say us as in Las Vegas, you're going to teach us what it is to be a fan of the Raiders, the tradition, what do you do on game day, all that stuff.
Exactly what I was going to get into. Game day, nothing's going to change. You're going to have the black hole. I mean, no matter what they want to call it, it's still going to be the black hole. You're going to get the fans dressed up. Most of the diehard black hole fans that are there now are going to come out to games in Vegas. You're going to get new fans, a new generation of young fans that want to dress up and have fun and put on the face paint. AC/DC will be blaring through the sound system. You're still going to get the Back in Black. You're going to get Hell's Bells on third down. You're still going to get the Autumn Wind playing. Yeah. You're going to get the Raider Anthem from Cube. None of that is going to change. That is the identity of the Raiders. No, it's not one announcer. It's not one city.
Matt, but you're also going to have, to the point about the stadium, their first ever brand new facility that is going to be state of the art.
It's theirs.
Yes, they're going to. You're going to have now a new theater in which to enhance
a real pretty one too.
Yes, to really
enhance. Look good.
So that black hole, I know somebody commented to me this week. Well, if the black hole's not there when we ran the poll, if the black hole's there, then the identity's gone. Now, I don't. The black hole is trademarked. They own it. It's a group. I cannot believe, nor will I believe, that they are not going to be here. They will be here.
They're Raiders fans.
Exactly. They're going to be here. It's close to, and they're going to start their chapter here.
And despite what Tony says, they're not rebranding. They're not changing
Tony
their uniforms.
Our executive producer.
I'll be quiet, Tony. You don't have a mic today. Be quiet.
Tony wants to go to orange. He wants orange and blue Raider uniforms.
Yeah, he does.
No.
It's silver and black. They're not changing anything. You may see a cool Vegas patch in year one, inaugural season.
But that's the thing about
probably as far as you're going to go.
That's the thing about
for
the
a
Raiders.
change.
As proud as I will be that they will be called Las Vegas home, the Raiders are the Raiders. Again, it doesn't matter if they're on Mars. You don't need a city in front of the Raiders' name. Raider Nation is Raider Nation. All right, we're going to come back. We're going to close out the show. Short show today. Do the Dodgers. Get on the phone, 702-889-5978. We want to hear what you have to hear here on Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
Silver and Black today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Here's your host, Scott Gulbranson.
Back, we're going to close out the show. The Dodgers are booting us off, which I know there's a lot of Raider fans like you, Matt, who are Dodger fans, so they're probably not too disappointed.
Maybe that's because of L.A., like we just talked about.
Yes, true.
And I think Raider fans,
my wife and kids are happy I'll be home a half hour. Listen, I want to give a call out on Facebook. As you know, we are live streaming on video on Facebook as well. Mile High Raider, who's been really active in this show, says, I love the show, all Raider news all the time. Thank you, man. I appreciate that very much. And Aaron Hernandez, too, who got the movie reference earlier. Gotta love that. When people, I like dropping movie references, and sometimes they go past the age of some of the people we're talking to. But I want to finish up the discussion around Raider identity, because in the break we were talking about how loud the Coliseum gets, right? It is a home field advantage. There's been a lot of talk from fans in Raider Nation saying, boy, I hope we don't lose that home field advantage when we're in Vegas because there's going to be so many visiting fans. I don't think that'll happen. Didn't happen with hockey this year, except maybe 2 games. But imagine how loud the Coliseum gets, how it's going to be Monday night, September 10th, against the Rams. Right. And put that inside in a dome.
It's going to be I'm getting chills thinking about it because it's going to be insane. And here's a funny thing that I'm pretty positive fans in LA and Oakland have never even thought about is the Raiders chant, right? It comes through on TV sometimes if you're listening, you get that Raiders, that great chant, right?
Yeah.
What do we do out here for Rebels games?
Oh, same thing.
Rebels.
It's just a transition.
We're already ready to go. You just got to change a couple of the letters up. They're already ready to start chanting for you. It's going to be insane out here. Those games are going to be wild.
Yes. Listen, we're going to get out of here. We get out early. So my kids, make me some breakfast, kids. No, just kidding. We're going to be out. We're going to be back for a full show next week. And make sure you listen. We'll have a podcast this week as well. Check us out, silverandblacktoday.com. On Twitter, Silver Black, the number 2 and day. Make sure you follow us there as well. And we'll make sure that we get out. I know it's a weird end time, but the Dodger pregame starts early at 20 after. So we're going to step aside, and we will see you guys and talk to you guys next week. Matt, thanks, brother.
Yes, sir.
All right. You've been
listening.
Season. Football season, baby. Training camp. Keep tabs on the website, silverandblacktoday.com. We'll keep you up to speed. You have listened to the Silver and Black Today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m. We'll see you next time.